Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to a forum with the three candidates who are hoping to be mayor of Tantramar. And this is all happening in advance of the upcoming municipal elections, which will be held on May the 11th. My name is Carol Cook. I'm a member of the Committee for Informed Elections, and I will be your host today. We hope to get through about 8 questions in the space of about an hour or so, giving each candidate in different order a chance to answer each question. It's now my privilege to welcome our 3 mayoralty candidates, Sabine Dietz, Terry Jones, Debbie Wiggins-Colwell. Welcome all. We're going to start with an opening question because the people that are listening would like to get to know you. And so here we go. I'd like to start by asking each of you to talk a bit about your background and why you think that you'd be a good mayor for Tantramar. And we're going to rotate the order of questions, but we are going to start this question asking Sabine to tell us a bit about herself. Sabine Dietz.
Yes, thanks for having me in this forum. So my name is Sabine Dietz. I'm a Tantramar resident. I live out on Highmarsh Road, and I've lived there for the last over 20 years. I've been active in this community for a long time, engaged on public health, currently on housing. I'm involved in climate change issues. I've also sat as a councillor during the amalgamation process, and I'm just generally very engaged in municipal politics. And in municipal government, simply because that is part of the job that I do, work with municipal governments across Atlantic Canada. And so why I'm running is because I love this community. I'm dedicated and committed to this community, and I have been since I arrived here. And I participate in many things that move the community forward as a whole. Just to mention one, I'm part of the Fresh Winds Eco-Village housing development, and we're building housing that's sustainable long-term and has stable rents here in the community of Tantramar. And so the engagement goes beyond climate change, which is one at the core of my work that I do, into all areas from food security over health, into housing, into poverty, into transportation, all of them. So I look forward to working with the community on making the best place that we can of Tantramar.
Thank you, Sabina. Next, we're going to ask Terry Jones. And Terry, I'll just recap the question. Would you tell us a bit about your background and why you think you would be a good mayor for Tantramar?
Thanks, Carol. Well, I started this journey into municipal politics very short time ago. I have lived in the community center village. We've been in Sackville in the area for 38 years. I worked as an LPN at the Sackville Hospital. I've worked as an EA at Tantramar High School, and now I have a small business and I'm a naturopath, so I'm still working, looking after and caring for people in my community. I live quite a distance from Sackville, almost at the end of the municipality, and so the elephant in the room, the big Riggs plan, is coming next door. And it always takes a jumping off point for someone to want to step up and start to be more engaged. In my case, I've only had 2, this past amalgamation, to actually have a voice. The rest of the time it was, you're in the provincial jurisdiction. And so I didn't feel like there was really a lot for me to be able to do as a resident. That's changed with amalgamation. Now we're all getting a voice at the table. We're all going to be able to voice our concerns, bring the pluses and the minuses of living in Sackville. And it's a wonderful community. I say I moved from Nova Scotia, so it was a bit of a culture shock. We had party lines when I arrived here and cattle on my front lawn. It was very unique, but I've grown to love it, and the people of Sackville. It's unique. The entire area is so special and so unique. I don't have a pedigree in nonprofits or community service, but I do have drive, passion, reliable, dependable, and I've had a lot of people have asked over the last little while if someone from outside, again, Sabine's in our Ward 2, we're in Ward 4, so Kristen's already been elected. My problem was there was no other position for me.
Okay. So thank you, Terry. Now we're going to pass to Debbie Wiggins-Colwell. Debbie, please tell us a bit about your background and why you think you'd be a good mayor for Tantramar.
Thank you, Carol. I've spent my whole life in Tantramar. I raised my 3 children in Tantramar. I ran 3 businesses in the village of Dorchester. I am now retired. After retirement, I became the mayor of Dorchester, and now I'm deputy mayor of Tantramar. I feel now that being retired, I have the time to move forward and dedicate my time to being the mayor of the municipality of Tantramar. I've done over the years with connecting with people. I have met a lot of people through, say, like the conferences. You met the premiers, you met the ministers, and I think that would help me moving forward in situations that happens. It means a lot if people know your face. When you go into the room, they can say, "Oh, hi, Debbie, what you doing?" And I think that's a big asset to move on to be mayor of Tantramar.
Great. Well, Terry, you touched on the gas plant issue, and that is our leading question. And Terry, you're up first, and then we'll go to Debbie for her response to it, and followed by Sabine. And as I say, we'll just rotate how the answers happen in what order. Here's our first official question of the afternoon. The New Brunswick Energy and Utilities Board is expected to make a decision soon on whether or not to approve this 500 megawatt gas plant in Centre Village. If the board does approve the project, how would you see your role as mayor in dealing with it? Terry Jones.
Well, Carol, the EUB decision, when it comes down, we're hoping that it's no, they're not approving it. However, there's always that chance that it's going to be approved. It's a bad project in a bad location at a bad time. I am fortunate to be able to follow through with what the council has started already. The sitting council has come out against the plant, which allows us to speak more candidly without being restricted as far as the negative impact towards human health, the environment, the air quality, long-term effects, water security. It's not creating the jobs that it has kind of alluded to. There's going to be 8 to 10 jobs out of it. So when people start bringing that forward, it's kind of not such an important issue because jobs is not going to come to our area because of it. There is going to be long-term damage and far-reaching. So as mayor, I want to continue to do the work that this council has already started. I want to continue to reach out and work with, like, Stop the Tantramar Gas Plant, which I am a member and an organizer. I want to reach out to PSEC and Protect the Schenectady Isthmus Coalition, continue their work with all of the wonderful groups in town, Seniors for Climate, etc., that are working on this project. Together we're strong.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Terry. We're going to move on just in the interest of time. Debbie Wiggins-Colwell, if the board, the EUB, does approve this project, how would you see your role as mayor in dealing with it?
Thank you, Carol. For one thing, I do not support the gas plant as it is currently proposed. I believe it raises serious concerns around environmental impact, long-term sustainability, and community trust. Tantramar has been clear that we value our land, our health, and our future, and major developments such as aligned with these values. At present, I do not believe this proposal meets our needs. I believe in development that creates long-term benefits without compromising our environment or our quality of life. We can pursue growth that fits Tantramar and not projects that impose on us. And as I was saying earlier, in the position that I am as deputy mayor, would be able to contact people in the provincial and maybe even the federal government to air our concerns of what is happening with the gas plant. We do not. We have a fragile ecosystem and our environment, and I think with the Isthmus of Schenectady, it has to be protected. And protected, we need a strong voice to move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Sabine, we'll follow up with you. And just to recap the real question, if the EU...
I was going to get to that.
I'm just going to just take a moment, if I may. If the EUB does approve this project, Sabine, how would you see your role as mayor in dealing with it?
Yeah, so this is the assumption that the project has gone through, not before. And I think that's a really important piece to take into consideration. This is a provincial jurisdiction, so the municipality has limited powers, has always had limited powers, especially because our municipal plan currently doesn't include the area. So if it is approved and I would be mayor, I would point out that our municipal plan is up for renewal, and that should really develop into a way to control developments that we don't want in our community. So municipal planning process up in the next couple of years, definitely on a major big issue for the incoming council. The second thing is there are limited things that council will be able to do. One of them is certainly to continue supporting the organizations that Terry has mentioned. They've done a lot of work around this. They need our continued support. Speaking out with the province, but also negotiating with the province. There are things that can be put in place in order to reduce noise, in order to reduce the impacts on the area, especially out in the Centerville area where this is supposed to happen. All of this can be done. Like I mentioned, this is a provincial jurisdiction, and us saying over and over that we're against it is not going to make any difference once it's actually in place. And then we really need to fight that we're going to get all we can out of it, and that we get in the process the protections that the area needs.
Unfortunately, though, the NB Power, because they're a public utility, are able to build those facilities in any jurisdiction, in any zone, without any kind of consequence other than following the IAC process and the environmental impact process.
Okay, Terry, do you want to weigh in on that, what Sabine has just said, Debbie?
Yes, I do. That was very clearly put when this came forth. This came forth in July. Us as a municipality, a council sitting, we did not know about it. We heard about it the same time as the people in the community heard about it. Now that means that they're not communicating, they're not letting it through. They got something in their mind. They're just going to go ahead and do it.
But Debbie, would you agree that it is it's out of municipal jurisdiction?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
That's great. We're going to move on just because we have tons of questions, my friends. Debbie, you're up next on this one. Question 2. Many residents in Sackville are worried about their safety now that the fire department has only about 40% of the staff it needs. There's an ongoing workplace investigation into Sackville Fire and Rescue. Debbie, to start with you, what do you feel needs to be done to restore the Sackville Fire Service to full strength? And would you commit to releasing the report and the recommendations of the investigators when they become available?
Thank you, Carol. This subject is most concerning to me. We rely on our fire department, firefighters, in supporting recruitment. Retention means clear communication, proper resources, and strong leadership from the town hall. Going forward, our town hall has to keep an ear close to the ground to engage with firefighters with no communication gap between council and administration. As for the release of the report, I would be open to ongoing reviews, discussion prior to the release.
But just to reiterate, Debbie, would you commit to releasing the report and the recommendations of the investigators to the public?
Yes.
Okay, great. We've got that. Now we're going to pass to Sabine Dietz. Would you like to just go right into the question?
Yeah, and I would like to respond to what Debbie said. So a couple things. This issue is not new. When I came on council in 2020, if I remember correctly, that was not new. As far as I know, it's been going on for a lot longer. So every continuous council has had this as a priority, and there have always been promises made and not kept. But like Debbie said, fire service, emergency service is key to our communities, whether it is from flooding or wildfires. We need them. And not having everybody in place that should be in place puts risks on all of us. So it's a priority. But I want to remind the listeners also that there's a very clear separation between council and staff. The CEO is the only employee of council, and the CEO is responsible for all of the other staff. And under the bylaws of the municipality, firefighters are part of that. So, and then the second piece is, no, we cannot promise that this report will be made public. That is actually countering law. bylaws. If there's any HR matter in this report, which I don't know, they cannot be made public because that's a confidentiality issue. So I would not commit to it. I would instead commit to doing the work that needs to be done, to review everything, to work with the CAO, to figure out what can actually be done. The council has, at this stage, under the bylaws that are in place for the municipality, cannot address this directly except through the CAO, and I want to emphasize that. So with all of that, it should be a priority of the next council, and it should be a priority of the CAO. I'm pretty sure it is, because it is concerning to the entire community.
Thank you very much for that, Sabine. And we will pass now to Terry.
The fire department working at 40% is unacceptable. So we really need to work with the CAO. As Sabine has pointed out, that is our channel of communication with the fire department. Yes, we need to know what's in the report as far as structure. We do not need to know the HR stuff. We should never violate the right to information and protection of privacy act. We have a legal voice on this already who has stated that, and I believe that Councillor Finney has taken it to court to get it released, and it was told at a federal court level that it wouldn't be because it violated RIPTAS. So the idea of just being able to open that report out, however, a new report should be done, and I believe it's underway already, to find out exactly what is systemically wrong with the fire department. And maybe at that point in time, we have to look at what, as a council in association with the CAO, can do as far as possibly a restructuring of the oversight in the fire department themselves, not letting the department just end and go to our CAO. She has a lot going on, but maybe a superintendent position who is another ear that can listen to, that has structure and can add to the overall effect of getting some of these systemic problems corrected.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Terry. So now we're on question 3 of 8 that we hope to get through. Sabine's going to start us off, and here is the question. As mayor, Sabine, what would your role be in promoting climate adaptation and resiliency? Or in other words, what immediate steps do you feel need to be taken to prepare for climate change?
Thanks. So there's currently a lot of things going on in the community of Tantramar. One of them is, of course, Tantramar has been active on climate change, both on the mitigation side as well as the adaptation side, so which is resiliency. Both of this is resiliency. Very much so for decades now. Just want to state that very clearly. Currently, there's a risk assessment undergoing that EOS Eco Energy has partnered with the municipality on. This is an excellent initiative supported by multiple other organizations, which will have as an outcome a climate change adaptation plan, which will hopefully really address some of the long-standing issues around looking at the community as a whole and looking into the future in terms of risks and managing those risks. What is really important to me is that there's numerous organizations that are working in different spaces on climate resiliency, and that includes food security, that includes housing, that includes poverty, that includes all of the issues. And there's numerous ones that are active, and those need support. And I think we're really benefiting in Tantramar from many, many community organizations that are doing this kind of work. And my last one is the municipality has a climate change action advisory committee. That is a committee of council, which was implemented now a number of years ago. And there's a lot to be done about strengthening the role of the advisory committee, simply because it can do a lot more advising both the operations as well as council on decisions that are being made that benefit or harm the environment and climate change.
So Sabine, just to clarify, for those of us who may not know exactly how town council works, you mentioned the climate change committee or the climate change mitigation resilient advisory committee. Yes. So they would work with the council. Am I right on that?
Not quite. So there is a liaison councillor that is appointed to the committee. And then the liaison councillor and the staff member would be part of the deliberations of that committee. The committee sits. I was a member of that for a term. The committee sits and responds to sometimes requests coming out of the municipality for advice on certain things. But essentially, it also has a small budget to spend on various items such as solar panels for the Bill Jones Memorial or the slow chargers in Dorchester. They were also organized by this committee and paid for.
Thank you, Sabina.
You're welcome.
Terry Jones, what immediate steps do you feel as mayor, as part of the town council, need to be taken to prepare us all for climate change?
First, I think as a new mayor coming into the situation, I need to get up to speed with all of these different committees and liaisons and the whole shooting match. It is a learning curve. We need to reach out to our committees and our independent organizations that bring us the information. They're the people on the ground. They're the people that are doing the hard work, the research, and bringing it to us. Again, new to this role in this position, I feel we need to look at potentially looking at development plans, looking at buffer zones around anything industrial that's being brought in to mitigate some of the concerns and worries, a stronger action plan, and possibly let's look at adding into some of these tax incentives that we give to developers to incorporate a green portion. If new buildings were given tax incentives, but then had to turn around and put solar panels on their roofs or things like that. But there's nine people that would have to look at all of it and then come up with a plan as a group.
So, Terry, if I'm hearing you correctly, you feel the need that you're going to have to get up to speed on climate change,
on what is
and resiliency and adaptation.
Yep, I've read the documents and things, but I wouldn't want to make promises here on the radio that I can't keep or that I need more information on. Again, new to the whole thing, and wouldn't want to overstep or say that we can do something that we can't. So in all honesty and openness, yes, I need to get up to catch up and be informed, and that's one of my priorities.
Thanks for that very much, Terry. Debbie Wiggins-Colwell, what immediate steps do you feel need to be taken to prepare for climate change in our community?
Well, with the climate change, we live in a very rural and coastal community. So we have all of that to take in consideration. Dorchester Cape, we have our Nature Conservancy. Any little thing that would happen down along the coast would really be devastating for the sandpipers that visits Johnson's Mills every year. And protecting the environment and planning for impact should be an everyday decision making. Treat it as a global and not just a local issue. It's got to be looked at globally.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that, Debbie? Global, are you talking about, thinking globally but acting locally? Can you expand a bit?
Well, it's saying that say like I mentioned about the sandpipers. Well, they come from up north. They fly down to Johnson's Mills, and then they feed there for 3 weeks. Then they go right on through to South America. That's a global thing. Something happens to them in the Dorchester Cape or Johnson's Mills area that can impact it globally.
Debbie, we know that you did your best to reinstate SHEP, and we know that for the community of Dorchester, the sandpipers and visiting them are very, very important. But you're going to be mayor, or one of you are going to be mayor for the entire region. So beyond just looking after the interests of Dorchester and tourism, what can you just expand a little bit more?
Thank you, Carol. Yeah. The Isthmus of Shenectal is another very fragile piece of our system that has to be protected, and that's important to me. And just our wildlife, the parks that the wetlands have, that's really in great work being done to preserve what's happening there. And
okay. Thank you for that, Debbie.
I think we also need to involve residents and the community members in some of our green plans, some of our environmental impact, to look at what they're doing as individuals and look at incentives and what's owed into the provinces that we can tap into.
And as Sabina said, I want to give a big shout out for EOS Eco Energy.
Yes,
I'm
for sure.
very interested in all that they do to educate us all.
Yeah.
We're doing well, everybody. I'm going to move on and recircle back if we have time.
Okay.
If that's cool. All right.
Thank you.
Question number 4. We're starting off with Terry, then Debbie, and Sabina will bring it home on this question. Many residents of Tantramar say they're concerned about property taxes. Terry, you're going to lead us off. How do you feel about this issue?
I think there is concern about property tax, and there is, in this economic environment that we're in right now, every penny counts. The local service districts, which are now part of the municipality, have all traditionally had lower taxes, but we also have less services. The province still maintains our roads in those areas. The province still does our snow plowing. You know, we all deal with the RCMP. We also deal with our own water, our own wells, septics, and things along that line. Living out in the rural district, I look at what is my municipal dollars going for the benefit of my community. Now, as a mayor, I have to look at potential mayor, I have to look at what has taken place for the entire municipality. So it would be nice to see a breakdown of our residential taxes into more specific areas so that we know what type of percentages are being used for each things, such as lighting and road maintenance in town, water bills, the infrastructure for water.
Right. Terry, this is a question I'm going to be sort of adding on to this one for all the candidates.
Okay.
But when you think about taxation and development and how that is done compared to residential taxes, do you have any opinion on that?
I think that our development taxes, we have to look at what type of development it is. We have to be careful about where we stand with that. I know that residential development has been giving tax incentives, which I agree with. Sabine's project is amazing. I support it 100%. I was so glad to hear at town council that they had given the tax incentive.
But how do you feel, if I may, about private development going on? For example, the Lafert developments and the tax rebates they get.
I have a bit of a problem with private development getting big tax incentives.
Okay.
Not because I don't think we need development, but I think in a lot of cases that development was going to happen anyway. So if there was more affordable housing added into the plan, if there was more sustainable as far as energy and solar panels, green roofs, things along that line in their development plan, it would be easier to say yes to those large incentives. And possibly maybe 10-year tax incentives are just a little bit too long when we look at the way the economy is moving. But that would be something that I would have to really review with the council, with the municipality and our staff, so with Jennifer Bourne, and see just exactly what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how it's been benefiting so far.
Thank you so much, Terry. We're going to pose the same question to Debbie Wiggins-Colwell. How do you feel about this taxation issue and property taxes in particular?
Thank you, Carol. Well, if you look at your property tax bills, you have two parts. You have the municipal part and you have the provincial part. The municipal tax is the largest portion of the funds services, and they fund services such as our fire and emergency, local roads, sidewalks, street lighting, water, sewer, recreation facilities, and community programs.
And I'm going to ask you to cut to the chase. How do you feel about the rates right now?
Okay. Well, when you look at what they cover, like the planning, the bylaws, and the town administration, ongoing reviews of the budget allows the opportunity to weigh in on the needs versus the nice to have. So without doubt, with ongoing hardship, budgets will be monitored by elected officials with strict approach to decision making and to follow up with critical critical movement of how that money is spent. Do we need more recreation facilities? Yeah, they're good to have, but with what is going on with the tightening of our belts, we have to really look where these services are being put.
Thank you, Debbie. And for the part two of the question, which I'm also going to pose when it's Sabine's turn, how do you feel about tax incentives for private development in this town compared to municipal landowners' tax?
I have no problem with
You have no problem?
no
Okay.
problem with that at all, because they are having businesses underneath that's bringing development, infrastructure development into our community. We're going to have health cares. We're going to have businesses coming into these new buildings. So I think that's what Sackville or Tantramar needs, is more businesses coming in and taking up. We can't be in a stalemate. We got to move on forward along with staying also representing our past, but also looking forward to the future. We have to have a future.
Thank you, Debbie. And I'm no expert on taxes and property taxes, but I'm getting a glimmer of how it all works. And so when the big developers in town, and it's no secret that Lafford has done a lot on big developments, when they get a 50% tax rebate, how do you feel about that? Because doesn't the town have to pick up the rest?
No, with that, they get the rebate at first, but in the long run, we will benefit from that. We will recoup our price that is paid out in our taxes and revenue, and with having the businesses come into Sackville and move us forward. That's my opinion on it.
Okay. Sabine, it's your turn. This two-part question. Do you want to jump in?
Can I just clarify what you mean by the 50% tax rebate? Do you mean the economic incentive program?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you
Yes.
for that clarification. Okay, so on property taxes, since amalgamation, the property taxes have been skewed. The outlying areas have always been lower, which was justified, a lot less services. And at some point, things need to even out because the outlying areas essentially weren't paying for the services that Sackville back then provided, such as community building, rink, etc. So that is the basis for tax adjustments, and that the council that is coming in will have to deal with that. Like currently they were frozen, couldn't do much, but that going forward, frozen by the province. So the municipality was still dealing with the municipal taxes. So that'll have to be dealt with. I think the analysis that needs to be done is very clear what kind of services. So Terry, you described that very well. The kind of service you actually receive versus what you're paying. I think that's going to be a lot of work for the incoming council, making sure that it's fair. So I believe in fairness. You're paying for the service that you're actually getting. And getting is not just street lights. Getting is also the service that you get through the recreation programs, through the rink, etc. So it's all of that. I just want to check that I touched on everything. Taxes are a very sensitive issue, and any incoming council member probably should look at that because it's going to be very critical and very, very, very touchy. As for the incentives, and full disclosure, Fresh Prince Eco Village received approval for that incentive. Council. My question to council is, to the current council is actually, so did you actually do an analysis before approving of what you're approving? Because that means less income for the municipality going down the road. If you've got too many of those incentive programs, you're going to lose on income down the road. And all residents of Tantramar will request more services.
But Sabine, I'm going to jump in because Debbie, you talked about the business aspect of a development that's got businesses below. Do you want to respond to Sabine?
The businesses that's a great boost for our economy. I mean, we need businesses in the downtown core. If we're not, it's going to whizzle up, and it's going to be like other communities. They're going to be on the outbases. They're going to be next to the Trans-Canada Highway instead of being in the core.
Back to Sabine.
Do you believe that the buildings that are currently being built in downtown wouldn't be built without that incentive? No, that's not the case. In those cases, in this case specifically, the money is there to build whether they get the incentive or not. Yeah. I think what the incoming council needs to do is review the guidelines, review the incentive program, and make sure it's a bit tighter than it currently is. It's very confusing currently, and I'm still asking, if you have 10 businesses asking for the incentive, currently you would have to approve all of them. Have you done the analysis of what it costs down the road? Because in Tantramar, with everything that's going on, we don't know how well we will do in attracting businesses. We need to, no question about that, in all of the region. But the uncertainty of the world and what is going on, there's no guarantee. So are you going to risk the future of Tantramar for a maybe benefit that you don't even know is guaranteed?
And I'm going to jump in here because taxation is a big issue. So, Terry, you can jump in a second, but I see that maybe Debbie wants to respond.
Yes, I think that we just can't let, like you say, private developers. I think we've got to give them a help too. So they are big developed people. They could go someplace else and develop. They didn't have to do the downtown core in Sackville.
I heard Sabina disagreeing with that, though.
Yeah.
Do you want to jump in?
They don't need the money. It's a nice benefit for them. So remember that was actually planned before. So it's not like, okay, so why are we giving money to companies that are multi-million-dollar businesses.
Okay, I'm going to just come back to Debbie.
Well, why wouldn't we? I mean, they're investing in our community. I mean, it's the same as your not-for-profit. I mean, you're doing stuff there, and you got you get the benefit
Excuse
for
me,
not-for-profits.
it's not the same, Debbie. It's not the same. Do you know what non-profit organizations
Yes, I do.
are?
I do.
You cannot compare them with for-profit.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I think, if I may, I'm going to see if Terry Jones, do you want to jump in on this very contentious issue?
Just a small little blurb. Yes, we need to attract new businesses to Sackville. We need to grow. We need to develop. However, in recent times, when a new building gets built, we are not attracting new business, but we are shuffling other businesses out of other places. So, yes, we will get some new growth, but when we talk millions of dollars over 10 years, what could we do for the town of Sackville, for the municipality of Tantramar, for any of the resources, for the fire department, et cetera, if that money, instead of going outside and going as an incentive to encourage buildings that possibly we're going to be built anyway, I think there's a lot we could do for our community, our environment, the green, the greening of our energy, all of those things could be used. That money could be used in other avenues.
Terry, and I sense, just we're going to move on in a second, but Debbie does want another little moment.
Thank you, Terry. And I have to disagree, Terry, with that of shuffling the businesses around, because there is new businesses coming into these buildings that are not initially from Sackville at the moment. I do know that for meeting with them. And the health care that's going to go into the bottom, I know it's going to alleviate some of the pressure at the Sackville Hospital, and to be able to come there, and that's going to leave out more room for the Sackville Hospital to expand or do other things, and which is very crucial in our downtown core.
Okay, my friends, we'll circle back to this if time permits, I promise, okay? We're now on question number 5. We're leading off with Debbie, and here's the question, my friends. Poverty levels in Tantramar seem to be rising, judging by how busy our food banks are. What role, and we're starting with Debbie, what role, if any, does the town have to play in helping poor people?
Thank you, Carol. Keeping an open communication with all of our Tantramar region's needs, Council is aware of the needs of our community. I personally am aware of the Greater Dorchester Moving Forward, a not-for-profit organization, has a community fridge that collects and stores and distributes healthy, nutritional food that has been in the position to share with the overabundance with fresh foods to other parts of Tantramar facing food insecurities. We can report to Council the important work that is being done with our food banks in Tantramar area, and now effectively, are they reaching our families, and how they are reaching our families in needs. That's a part I believe Council can bring forward to make, because a lot of people didn't know that the Greater Dorchester Moving Forward, that we had a food bank that had fresh food, an abundance of fresh food, not only foods but meats and things that are donated through the companies in Moncton that deliver it. We go and have it delivered. So that's a great source to keep our community needs brought forward and to.
Okay. Debbie, thank you. And just for the interest of our listeners, because I know everybody's got the question in their head, but the question we're still asking for everybody is, what role, and Sabine, it's your turn, what role, if any, does the town have to play in helping poor people?
So I just want to go back. The role of a municipality, there's a certain number of services that the municipality has to deliver according to the acts, Municipalities Act and Community Planning Act. Poverty per se is not one of them. However, a municipality has a lot to do with food security, with housing, with health, even though it's not directly written in the act, but those are the expectations of a municipality. So what I mean by this, even though we can't address poverty directly, a municipality can certainly support the organizations that support food security, whether it's community gardens, Dorchester Moving Forward, or our own Sackville Food Bank, but it doesn't stop there. It goes all the way to housing. Housing needs to be affordable. It needs to be accessible. It needs to be there for people who don't have the money to spend a lot on rents. I mentioned food, I mentioned housing, I mentioned healthcare. For us in the region, our healthcare system in the area is extremely important. If people have to travel out of the community, you get access to it. It's a matter of, sometimes it's a matter of life and death. So overall, the municipality can do a lot in those areas, whether it is supporting those communities or actively being involved. There is a mayor's roundtable on housing. There's a rural health action group. Food security we're often not talking about, but SACL has a community garden. SACL has organizations like Open Sky, like our farmers. So SACL itself has had a municipal community hall, community building on the docket for a long time. We had it on the docket when I was in council. And it is still a crucial building to have for the entire municipality, which allows community members to learn how to cook, for example, with a kitchen, to allow our vendors, our farmers to come in sheltered, fully sheltered in the summer, fully sheltered in the winter, in a space that is made for that.
I'm going to just jump in a little bit there in the interest of time, Sabine. If we can, we'll circle back. Terry, what role, if any, does the town have to play in helping poor people?
Well, the town is responsible for the health and wellness of its community and its residents. And so we need to be proactive in finding out all of the information that we can. There's very little I can add to what Sabine and Debbie have both brought forward. We have organizations that are in existence. We do need a community building. We do need to educate people on growing their own vegetables, their own herbs, being self-supportive that way with community gardens. We do have a huge network of farms and farmers and a wonderful farmers market, but that doesn't necessarily meet the poverty issue and the food insecurity issue. We do have to look at all buildings that are being constructed having some type of affordable housing units in them if they're large developments. I think that there are a lot of spaces that we can look at, but the biggest thing that a mayor and council can do is support all of the organizations that are in our community that are already working on this and have been working on it for a long time. Okay. No sense reinventing the wheel if they're already there. Let's utilize them.
Thank you, Terry Jones. Well, next question will be heading off an answer with Sabine. And here is the bit of a blurb and a question to follow. Question number 6. Many people complain about the lack of public participation during Tantramar council meetings. Under the current council procedures bylaw, there's only one 15-minute public question period per month, and it's strictly limited to topics that were discussed at that one particular meeting. As mayor, Sabine, we'll start with you. Would you ask the clerk to present a new procedures bylaw for consideration by the new council so that it would include public question periods on any municipal topic at every public council meeting?
Yeah, so I'm going to just go step back a little bit. The procedures bylaw is meant to guide the council in terms of how to hold its meetings, including how much time for public input, etc. So, and it is clearly outlined in that bylaw. It's actually a very useful bylaw to read because it also sets a bit of an ethical and moral standard for how you behave in the room. Right. What I would like to do is, I think it's sad that the 15 minutes are restricted to issues that are just have been brought up by council. So many of the urgent issues can never be brought up that way. I would certainly want council to reconsider opening the bylaw and changing the bylaw. There are not many things that would have to be changed, so it wouldn't be a massive rewrite of a bylaw. But some things council needs to consider, and this is not a mayor's decision. This is a decision of all of the council, and so all of council would have to fully understand what the procedural bylaw actually, what it is like, and what it does, and why it does certain things.
Sabine, I'm going to jump in. At this point, if you were a regular Tantramar resident, would you feel that you had enough opportunity to express your point of view at any public council meeting?
No. So in fact, in the last times I've been there, I don't think I stayed in until the end, simply because the 15 minutes are not open, and often there are things that have popped up in a community within a month.
And Sabine, just to clarify, don't you have to get permission to be part of that 15 minutes per month?
No, not at the end.
Okay, excuse me. Tell me more. Educate me. Yeah.
So, no, at the end you can ask questions, but you can only, and this is only once a month, but you can ask questions, but you can only ask questions of things that have come up during the council meeting. And so theoretically the
particular
mayor,
meeting.
and
Yeah.
theoretically the mayor has to interrupt you if you come in and bring up anything that's of concern at that time, but was not brought up during a council meeting. So yes, this is very restrictive, and it doesn't open the floor to having a council being informed at that time of something that may really be of importance to the community.
So would you advocate changing that slightly?
I would discuss with council and make sure that we reconsider this and we discuss it as council, and then we make a decision whether we direct the clerk to make certain changes.
Okay, great. Terry Jones, to recap slightly, is 15 minutes per month enough time to discuss things and only be confined to that one meeting? Would you try and change it? Please let us know.
Most definitely. I think that bylaw does have to be looked at. I think we need to communicate with our citizens, and we don't have 15 minutes. Could be 2 people. There could be 20 people that have questions. Now, can we run on for hours and be there till midnight every council meeting? No. Should we have 15 minutes at every meeting? Definitely, if we're only allowed to speak about what takes place at that meeting. So yes, I would definitely support and ask the council to support changing that bylaw, asking for the wording, making sure that it gives some open, honest communication from our citizens to us. We're here because of them. They need to be allowed to have their voices heard.
Okay. Terry, thanks for that. And closing off this question, Debbie Wiggins-Colwell, do you think that the public needs more time to ask questions at meetings?
Thank you, Carol. I believe with the open communication with the citizens of Tantramar and the council, many inquiries can be addressed with more information from outside of the council, outside of the official question period.
And can you elaborate on how the public would get those questions in?
Well, if you have an open communication with your residents, you have this coming up. But the council meetings are conducted with a pre-approved agenda, and the address to address the issues of concern. Outside of the agenda, we risk losing structure of our meetings. However, a motion could be put forward that would allow council to vote on this topic. So say if the council wanted to put not only on the regular council meeting, but the community of the whole meeting, if they wanted to have a question period at the end of that, and our 2 major meetings that we have per month is our regular council and our committee of the whole. So if council would like to bring a motion forward to have that changed, to have another an open session at the end of that, maybe to discuss other things, but there again, we have to be very strict on, because that could get off, as Terry had said, we could be there until midnight answering questions that just everybody could pop in their head at the time. It's got to be consistent, and we got to work on what we have on the agenda.
Okay, thank you for that.
There is nothing that says we can't say, if you're coming and you have a question that you would like to bring forward, that has to be presented and put on the agenda at the very end, and keep that within the limit of 15 minutes. And then that would give other citizens who haven't had a chance or thought of the question there could bring it up at another date. There's the more communication, the more openness, the more transparency we have, but that having having a time limit set and having the questions pre-approved, not that we approve them, but that we get them so that we can put them on the agenda, will give us time to have documents or any other information that we need there. So we
kind of in the same way that all 3 mayoralty candidates you've had the questions in advance. In the same, I see what you're saying. Sabine, do you want to add in anything more? Just because everyone's had some back and forth here.
Yeah, I think, structure is fine and needed, and absolutely. Otherwise, I think council has set very late when I was on council, is not comfortable. It's too long. So I appreciate that. I think in a large community municipality like Tantramar, 2 meetings per, and I don't think there have necessarily only been 2 meetings per month. There have been special meetings, and that needs to be the case. It is necessary, and the issues and challenges that the municipality will have over the next 4 years are huge, and I don't think we can limit it. And for those issues, all of them, the community will have to play a really large role. So, no, it is not. It is not. It is a question of balancing structure and limiting time and making sure that councillors are not dead on their feet at the end of the meeting, with the community's access to council meetings, councillors, and to open discussion. And I just want to remind everybody that it is very clear from recent decisions or recent statements that council meetings need to be open. And I take that as also a statement about councils need to be open to discussing and debating with the community, not to the end of everything, but a good mayor will be able to manage with leadership to manage that kind of debate. It needs to happen, especially right now, especially during the 4 years that are coming.
Yeah, great. Agree. Thank you for that. Quick, go Debbie, quick.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with that. But like, say for instance, this week I had 4 meetings. I mean, 1 open and 3 behind closed doors. So it does. And our meeting on the regular council meeting, I got out of there at 10:45.
Right.
So that is a long meeting.
Right.
So
just wanted to. We are cruising down to the end. We've got an open last question for what you want to discuss. But before we get there, question 7, it's Terry's start off. Here it is. To what extent would you support the establishment of a revised, flexible, and creative regime of protection for Tantramar's built heritage, especially with respect to our streetscapes? Terry.
I would definitely support and endorse, however you want to put it, looking after our heritage. Sackville's unique. The downtown core of Sackville is unique. It's changing. It needs to be updated, yes, but it needs to be updated in a way that we can keep our small-town charm. I think a committee needs to be formed if we don't already have one. I couldn't find one, in regards to heritage, so that we can look at the buildings that are slated for demolition, the lots, and maybe put a limit on our downtown as far as new development and be more proactive in keeping that unique flavor. I am so saddened when I see big buildings going down, those lovely Victorians and things coming. I understand that we have to move forward and we have to grow, but I wonder if there's a way that we can make sure that unique special properties have more protection so that they're limited on how fast they change or how fast they're torn down.
Thanks for that, Terry. Debbie Wiggins-Colwell, you're up next. And how do you feel about protecting Tantramar's built heritage, especially our streetscapes?
Well, there are many heritage properties and iconic structures throughout all of Tantramar. These are deserving of preservations. For example, now, this is one we're working on right now. It's the Wheaton's Covered Bridge. It's the last covered bridge in all of Tantramar. DTI has that on their scope. It could be torn down. So we had an ad hoc committee put together. So we're going to try to either, we can't save it as vehicles or transportation. There's going to be another bridge built beside it. But if we could take part of that, pieces and parts of that, and move it to the side, keep it out where our iconic barns used to be out on the marshes. We were known for that. Now I think you can count on one hand how many barns we have running up there. But,
and Debbie, if I may, you mentioned DTI, and I wonder if this is a similar issue to the gas plant. How much jurisdiction municipally do your councils have to weigh in and to change these things that maybe are decided in Fredericton?
Yes. Well, actually, we have been working with our MLA. Megan Minton is working with us on this ad hoc committee. And so she's our voice when it comes to DTI and to bringing it back. So we have a great group of people that are working to try to save this this important structure for future generations, because covered bridges are going to be a thing of the past. How it's going to look, I can't say, but if we have part of it, partials of it, whatever we can do to save pieces, I think that's very important.
Okay. Sabina, it's your turn to weigh in on how to protect our heritage in this town and this community.
Yeah, so there are two different issues actually. So Debbie touched on one is working with our provincial government and with our MLA. And I think that is definitely the role of a mayor and the role of municipal council. When it comes to streetscapes, because that's what you were asking about, we used to have a heritage bylaw for Sackville way back. That was abolished at some point with a lot of hurt. But again, I mentioned the municipal plan because there's a lot of misunderstanding about the role of a municipal planning process and a municipal plan, which guides the community in all of its development and developments in all of its priorities. It's way more important than a strategic plan. The municipal plan is being renewed. Like I mentioned, this is going to be on the council's plate. A perfect opportunity to have community conversations about how do we actually make statements about our heritage? How do we make statements about what our downtown should look like? Including Dorchester, including Sackville, so the old Sackville, old Dorchester. And that can be done through the municipal planning process. I think that's the best way. And then whether there are bylaws that come out of it, because that's usually what happens. You have your municipal plan, your zoning is done. You identify, we have a BIA, a business improvement area. Mm-hmm. You identify the areas that are important to the community for whatever reason, and you set bylaws accordingly. And that is a super good opportunity coming around in the next couple of years, actually fairly soon, to give the community actually the voice that it needs to identify what is important for us in terms of local heritage.
Okay. Once again, we may be able to circle back to that in a moment, but thank you for being short and to the point, all of you. Here's the closing question, and here it is. Are there other issues we haven't discussed that would concern you as mayor? And in terms of how we're going to run the order of that, it's going to be Debbie, Terry, and then Sabina. I think I'm going to have to ask you to limit your comments to about a minute, but what else is concerning you that you'd like to bring forth before we shut her down? Terry.
I look at it, I was looking and thinking what concerns me, and I think it is an overall health and wellness of the citizens and their involvement in all of the development, all of the back and forth, the transparency, so that they have the confidence in their council, the confidence in their entire municipal structure. And it may be an information topic too, to bring it forward. What in this area do you see as an issue that your municipality can help you with? And let's work together to bring some safety to the entire community.
Thank you for that, Terry. Debbie, are there any other issues that we haven't discussed today that would concern you as mayor?
I would like to see a strengthening of local services to support the people that rely on them. That's a big thing. That's what we got to be concerned about as elected officials. How are we supporting the people that vote for us and trust us? How are we moving things forward to protect them? And to make them feel safe.
Thank you, Debbie. What issues have not been discussed, Sabina, that concern you as mayor, that would concern you?
I think what we failed to do today is pulling everything together. So community resilience includes everything from healthcare, wellness, arts, culture, climate change, environment, food security. And a municipality really is where all of this stuff happens and where municipal government can have an influence on every single piece of that. And I think that's, to me, the most important piece. It's not any individual concern or issue. It is really, if we're elected, any one of us should really work to the benefit of the entire community and looking forward. Not just today, we have potholes. Not just tomorrow, we have more potholes. But really towards to become a really resilient community that can withstand all the bad things that are happening around us and can become a leader. We need to look at everything not in isolation, but combined. So climate change is not separated from housing. Housing is a huge issue, will remain a huge issue. Healthcare will remain an issue. Wellness will remain an issue. So is recreation. So is arts and culture. So if we look at each one of those things individually, we're bound to fail as a community, and we can't afford that. And I don't want us to fail. I really don't want us to fail.
Okay.
Good answer,
We're about...
Sabine.
Terry, do you want to jump in? Or, yeah, I'm just getting my producer saying, Carol, we've got it mostly covered. So I would like to say this concludes our mayoralty forum for today. And I would like to extend my very sincere thanks to all three candidates for mayor of Tantramar. Sabine Dietz,
Thank
Terry Jones.
Thank you.
Debbie Wiggins-Colwell. Thank you all for taking the time to come to this forum and to give our listeners a chance to know you and your platform better. And may I just say in closing, may the best woman win.
Love it.